Gusto lang naman natin magkapake sila sa atin, di ba? At the end of the day, you don't want to be forgettable. As a clout chaser,
Traditional media is dead. TV's dead. Influencers are dead. Now creative agencies are dead because AI is here.
Do you want your growth to be spiked up and down lang throughout the year, or you want my up and down, but there's also a trajectory that's going up?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Boomerang Into the Future. What do we discuss here at Boomerang Into the Future? The emerging trends and technologies and just the future of marketing in general. And today we're bringing together some really interesting thought leaders to help us with that and to discuss the most important word out of creativity, innovation, and impact for your CFO or your CEO. And of course, that's impact. I'm going to kick off with a bit of a story, actually. So when I joined what was then Paymaya about 3.5 years ago to work on the rebrand and the transformation, my team was telling me that the biggest challenge they had in marketing was convincing the senior management to invest in marketing. Because as one of them said, brand is just air. Yeah. I also find that really ironic, actually, because you can't live without air, right? How are you going to breathe without oxygen? So maybe they were actually helping us out. But let's start off with that, right? So how do you, in this world of increasing rationalization of spend and budget, how do you convince your CEO or your CFO to invest in marketing? Let's start off with Roche.
It's very important to have an alignment in terms of direction from the get-go, alignment in terms of direction and manage expectations. When I say alignment, there are several things that I can think of. First, you need to understand the vision of the company, right? Even before you go to the marketing bit, vision of the company, where you want to go, and also the business aspirations. Always two. Vision, which is the heart and the culture of the company, and business aspirations, because at the end of the day, this is a business, right? And then from there, very clear on the, let's say, the business plan. What do you want your company to achieve in the first year, in the next 3 years, in the 5 years, and so on? Then you make your presentation and your strategy based on that. Because that's very important. We're a living business. There are some incremental wins that we want to do on the short term. And at the same time, the business has to sustain for a long time. So when you have an alignment and an agreed expectation on that one with your CEO and CFO, then it will be an easier conversation, right? It's more of the, let's say, it can be the budget, it can be the direction for the year. I would say you go to that basic before you even start presenting your plan.
Got that. What about you, Manny? You know, as head of consulting for Ogilvy Philippines, I imagine that's not an uncommon conversation to have with your clients.
I think I'll build on what was mentioned earlier on. It's really speaking the same language as well. So when you're talking to, for example, the CEO, the C-suite, you're looking at bottom line ROI. So you frame now the idea of brand marketing in that point of view. And when you frame brand marketing in that point of view, it's very different, let's say in bank or insurance that have leads, acquisitions that you are targeting. Definitely that will be looking at short spikes in sales. No? And this is a reference. You may look it up as in IPA, digital effectiveness in today's world. When you look at brand marketing, okay, the sales trajectory is progressive, going up slope siya, long term. Okay? Sales marketing, or some call it performance marketing, no? Spike siya, up, down, throughout the year. Now, the last thing you want to happen, and you must show this now to the C-suite, because do you want your growth to be spiked up and down lang throughout the year, or you want my up and down, but there's also a trajectory that's going up? So speak the same language. And for me, I was saying, ibaba niyo muna yung language on communication, but more of the benefit later on.
Got that. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if they're the keepers of the cash, then you have to speak the language first and foremost, share that business vision, bring it back to that as much as possible. Meryl, I'd love to hear from you. Obviously, a lot of the marketing pesos funnel into media. How do you advise and provide that balanced perspective of, let's say, the short and the long term, as Manny had referred to?
It's about storytelling. I think that's what helps us. And at the same time, with the test and the learn, especially for media, that's where efficiency comes in, because data won't lie. And at the same time, it's not just about media, it helps us also equip the marketers to understand, because technically people get really overwhelmed with data. But if we teach them and show them how money moves and there's proven fact that it works for them, then we're able to sustain and help them. And at the same time, when they're involved, they get to appreciate the value of doing both at the same time.
You know, you touched on something I think I want to get thoughts from the broader group on, which is this notion that because the brand is well established, what kind of marketing does it need, right? Like, actually, I'm glad you said that, McDonald's is so well established, and there's going to be your non-marketing point of view of, then you don't really need to spend that much on it, right? I remember when I joined a very well-known local brand a few years ago, that's the first thing that my friend told me. What kind of more marketing does this brand need? And of course, I have my point of view on that, but I would love to hear from the rest of the team, right?
Gusto lang naman natin magkapake sila sa atin, di ba? Like, be it like it's a McDonald's or like my brand, Datu Puti, for example, or a Chowking, or the many other brands like Metrobank, hello, ganon. We all want na parang whatever effort that we put out, we want people to care for it. We want people to care for the brand. I know it's a lot of like intimidating words on like results, impacting. But I do believe that impact, at least for me personally, impact is something, isn't just on like the tactical promos, but also like brand building. Kasi at the end of the day, you don't want to be forgettable. I mean, as a clout chaser, and people wanting, and Gen Z's wanting to be the main characters of this era, di ba? We all just want to grab people's attention. So at least from me, at least from a benefit or like from a feeling, I just want people to care for my brand and for the work that I do, that what I put out in the world. At least yung nanay ko magkakapake dun, for example.
I'd love to hear Roche's point of view on this, especially because from my understanding, you've been with FWD for a while, right? So I feel like you've gone on this type of journey with FWD throughout your career. So tell us about what you've learned so far and what's worked for you and your team.
When you dissect all the KPIs from a marketing perspective or from a business perspective, that's where your tactical can come in. For example, are you looking for, do you want to be the employer of choice? Again, marketing is not just about the brand or the product itself. It's the entire being of the company. Do you want to be an employer of choice? Do you want to sell double, let's say in the case of FWD, we have e-commerce. Do you want to double the case size or the number of frequencies? Right? So that can be addressed by tactical campaigns, for example. Do you want to increase your NPS, your Net Promoter Score? So that again can be addressed by a marketing initiative or campaign. Are you looking for to conserve the people who are, example in our case, policyholders, so they don't lapse their policy? You can create a campaign out of that. Do you want to, those who already left the company, do you want to bring them back and reinforce their policy? That's another campaign. So when you look at it, yes, sales is important, but I think it's very important as well for marketing and the entire stakeholders, right? Even all the agency and media partners to understand what is it really that you're targeting, right? Because when you get to the bottom of it, then the campaign might be different. And then that becomes like your tactical.
What you have been talking about reminded me of, I believe it was Mark Ritson, who's an excellent marketing academic, who would remind everyone to let go or not fall to the tyranny of or, and instead celebrate the possibilities of and. It's not short term or long term. It's long term and short term. It's not top of the funnel or bottom of the funnel. It's both. And I do think, and this is part of the marketing industry too. It's, hey, like the same tactics we use to sell to consumers, I think the industry uses to sell to people within the industry, right? We have a tendency to declare something is dead immediately, right? Traditional media is dead. That's what we say before. TV's dead. Influencers are dead. And now creative agencies are dead because AI is here, and so on and so forth. But when you let go of like the trends, like more often than not, it's the combination of several things that tend to generate the best results over the short and the long term. As we mentioned earlier, right, like the booms are about creativity, innovation, and impact. I'm sure most of us here in this panel have a clear understanding of how creativity can help with impact, right? But of course, we work with stakeholders within organizations that may not have that experience or intuitive connection between the two. So my question to the panel is, how do you persuade stakeholders that creativity is vital for impact? I'm going to start with Noni.
Creativity sells. So more than being an art form, it's actually science, because creativity is supposed to address or answer a business problem. Kasi if you don't, diba, bakit ka pa nandyan? Who are you as a creative if hindi ka makakasolve ng business problem of your client or stakeholders?
I couldn't help but feel Manny violently agreeing with Mechi when she was talking about standing out in a sea of sameness. So I want to hear more from Manny on this one.
Everyone can make videos now. Everyone can make commercials. Everyone can do a lead generation campaign. I know that the industry of ito nakikita ko to every single day. Real estate, cars, pare-pareho sila nung technology na ginagamit. And I think this is where now infusing creativity in an enabler like digital or technology actually comes very handy. Otherwise, lahat tayo naka-reels, naka-stories, but how you execute it, how you stand out from sa dami ngayon ng mga nagti-TikTok din, no? How do you stand out, no? For example, even in Spotify, na-mention kita. Okay? In Spotify, how do you make sure that you're distinct from the different communications? So that's I think the crucial role of creativity. It's not just what is new sa platform, but how do you infuse creativity? Otherwise, pare-pareho tayo naka carousel ad. Yes.
You knew you had to go all in on it because you did your research and you did your homework. I think that's a really good example of innovation that is really rooted in an understanding of real gaps or opportunities in the customer's life. Now, I think in our industry, there's another area of innovation which can sometimes be, I guess, victim to innovation for the sake of innovation, right? And that tends to be when new forms of technology or media emerges. So I'd love to understand from the team, what spells the difference between, in that area, innovation para masabi lang na meron kami versus innovation that actually led to results. Anyone want to chime in?
I think it goes back to what we've been saying. It's innovation is a matter of really understanding the need and then looking at new ways to actually attack it. Not always new technology.
I think what I'm also taking away is, going back to our discussion on like long-term and short-term, right? There's some innovation that is long-term business building, like an actual product suite that's tailored to a specific customer segment. Or it can be short-term, tactical, and experimental. And maybe, like if we happen to be the best at leveraging this new thing, that'll get some people to care about us maybe for the next month or so until the next thing comes along. Okay, so we have a really interesting panel here. I think we have the full value chain of our industry here, actually, from creative to media. I'd love to hear everyone's point of view on what do you think is actually the most overlooked or underrated part of our entire ecosystem or value chain or way of working that you've touched on that you think is actually absolutely critical for impact?
I'm not sure if it's common, but I really appreciate when Rosh was talking about the entire process of having everyone involved. I think also from an agency point of view, a clear brief is very important. As long you have to get everyone on the same, sorry, agency. So you have to, you have to get everyone on the same page. We know that you need commitment to make things work. So like, for example, when there's a direction to collect data, it's not just about collecting data. It's understanding the data. Once you've learned something from a campaign, study it, roll it so it becomes sustainable. We tend to be overwhelmed with success of campaigns, but sometimes parang doon mas nawawala because once you achieve that success, you become complacent. People don't continue it because parang I've made a mark, that's it. But I think it's more important na kahit tactical pero nagka-mark siya, learn from it, it can turn into a branding campaign. So, and also it's important to really understand who your audience is. Because, like for example, you may have a good campaign, but you did not acknowledge which platform it should be coming out on. Wala siyang impact. Or if you have a good platform, pero hindi swak yung materials, hindi rin siya ma-remember. And the tendency sometimes, I'm not saying all, but we tend to assume that we are the consumer. Parang, and it's easy to say, I know digital kasi I use Facebook. Girl, it's not that, it doesn't work that way. TikTok, it doesn't work that way. Remember, your algorithm today can be different on your algorithm later this afternoon.
Girl, medyo baduy ka, so I'm not sure if that's the joke.
Sorry. Sorry.
Minsan baduy pa yung client so paano yun? Diba?
Yeah, so parang sana kanal na lang kesa Baduy. Kasi mas bebenta yung kanal sa Baduy, mas may nakaka-relate. So, I think those are the things that seem to be underrated kasi parang ang ordinary niyang pakinggan, di ba? But it happens. So, just reminder that you're a marketer, you're marketing to a specific audience, and you're not just talking to yourself.
More important ngayon yung reviving those qualitatives, interviews, immersions, because when you just look at the data that you see, chances are, again, your audiences are changing every single time. You wouldn't capture yung essence. Bakit ganun yung behavior? Bakit puro TikTok, no? Bakit puro challenges ang ginagawa? Yun yung mamimiss out natin. So, going back to that deeper understanding of the audiences, more important siya ngayon in the time of technology and innovation.
I really relate to how many of you spoke about the depth of consumer insight and having that understanding. Manny, similar, with the team, we do have sessions where we really just train on what is an insight, what is the composition of an insight, and we're very, very clear to the team, like a quantitative data point. 70% of Gen Zs do this. That is not an insight.
Okay?
That's just a statistic. Okay, you see that some of your customers are behaving this way, X transactions, Y transactions. None of those are insights, right? So with that, we wrap up our panel for Boomerangs Into the Future Impact. Thank you so much to this panel,
so much.
and thank you everyone for joining us this morning.